they pay very little attention to their competitors. They're customer obsessed, not competitor obsessed. They purposely put blinders onto their competitors and just focus on what do our customers care about. And it has worked out very well for them in a very competitive market. They actually referenced this like Jeff Bezos quote from years ago when Amazon was in this very competitive and like weird market where they were about to be apparently eaten up by like Barnes and Noble and like the big monsters in the space. And he encouraged the team of only 150 people at the time to basically stop focusing on them and focus on being customer obsessed and don't think about what they're doing or getting to like parity with the bigger competitors in the space, but focusing on what are their very specific needs of customers. Hey everybody, welcome to the Forget the Funnel podcast, where our goal is to help you as a SaaS leader finally stop guessing, understand your best customers, and drive more predictable recurring revenue. We're Gia and Claire, founders of Forget the Funnel, a product marketing and growth consultancy that helps SaaS businesses learn from their best customers, map and measure their experiences, and unlock their best levers for growth. So if you're looking to help your team make smarter decisions, this show is for you.
Today, we wanted to chat about differentiating or differentiated messaging in crowded or commoditized markets, right? I don't know, to summarize that, we made up a customer job statement. So we wrote, when I'm in a crowded or commoditized market, which are the same thing, really. When I'm in a commoditized market, help me differentiate my product's value so that my team can cut through the noise and bring in more good fit customers, which maybe needs some context setting. I know it was a couple of months ago, Gia, that you sent me the link to a post that Peep Leja wrote that basically proved that tons of, I'm going to say go-to-market execs, that's a really big umbrella, that basically proved that lots of people are feeling this problem right now.
Yeah, actually, when we started to talk about this subject, I went to the list of companies that we worked with last year. And so many of them, this was the situation where they found themselves in really crowded markets and they weren't sure how to cut through the noise. Comes up a lot. I know that there's a couple of quotes in Pep's post that we wanted to call out. But I remember when we were doing our own customer research about a year and a half ago, and cutting through the noise and standing out in a crowded market was something that came up all the time. It was one of the biggest sort of prompts to reaching out to us. And obviously Pep is seeing a lot of the same thing. So we can use his quotes rather than ours because they're more accessible.
Or the quotes from the like go-to-market execs who filled out this survey that he ran.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
so he ran this survey to, I think he said SaaS, B2B SaaS CMOs and VP marketing folks on their go-to-market challenges.
And our examples are from founders, but same sort of idea. Anybody sort of in a go-to-market sort of exec role, whether founder or sometimes product management, right? CMOs.
Totally.
VPs of marketing. So that's helpful. It's helpful context for this because actually when we were looking at the quotes earlier, I actually thought they were from founders. They sound a lot like what we hear from founders. It's almost identical, which is interesting.
Founders, and even like you said, people who are making decisions over product, not even owning marketing. But yeah, there were some really good ones. So what was one that really stood out to me? These are quotes of people describing their challenges with differentiating their product. Here's a quote: sharpening competitive differentiation and turning that into a why it matters to our customers enough to be consequential in their decision-making cycles. I really like that one in particular because it gets at the fact that if you come up with internally why you think what makes you different matters, there's no guarantee that the people who are making buying decisions out in the world are going to care about that. And later on in the post, he includes responses from survey recipients on the symptoms they are experiencing due to those messaging, those differentiation challenges. And I think these are really good too. So one of the responses is, actually there's two that I really like. One goes back to the internal understanding versus the customer understanding, which is what we think is a material differentiation against our competitors isn't always seen as a priority to our prospect. Ouch. Yeah. And then another one that I thought was really good, it was someone who said, it's hard for prospects to understand what we do, which can, of course, negatively impact every stage of the funnel and customer journey.
So you had two examples that you wanted to talk through in very different spaces. One is in international hiring, and the other one, I love this example. It's so vertical. Landscaping business management. I love it.
Highly niche.
Yeah, highly
Yeah.
niche. But maybe we should talk about that one first. Like, how is that, given how verticalized, is that a word? What a vertical market they're in, was that a commoditized market? How was that a competitive space for them?
So I think where I need to start is landscaping businesses are a subset of the larger like contractor businesses umbrella. Like the contracting or contractor business umbrella is served by a lot of one size fits all solutions. So you have House
Many,
Call
yeah.
Pro, which is like one of the biggest ones in the space. House Call Pro, which is like business management for home services. So there are a number of like generalized solutions to serve the landscaping business market. For that subset, there are a smaller but highly competitive set of solutions available. So when someone who's running a landscaping business is making decisions about software they want to use, they've got the all-purpose solutions that have the greatest amount of, market saturation. And then they have 3 to 4 landscaping business specific solutions to consider. So I hope that started to answer the question of like, how is something that sounds so niche and vertical actually competitive?
Talk a little bit about, because I didn't work with this company at all. So this is a brand new story for me. Talk to me a little bit about what the team was dealing with, what they had tried, why they came to us, right? Why they thought that we might be able to help them. But what were some of the previous solutions they were using and to solve this problem? The maturity of the company, just like the reality that they were in, basically.
One thing to bear in mind is that this work is actively in progress right now. So there's not a clean and tidy like before and after. There's like before and now. So this particular software, I want to give it a fake name, Landscapingly.
Landscaping.io.
Landscape, yeah, we'll call it landscaping.io. I love it. This is such a common way of starting a business. But the founding team of landscaping.io are industry people themselves. The co-founder and the CEO, he had worked as like the ops manager or in an operating role within a landscaping company for years. He was using competing software that felt super bloated and was more than the business that he was running needed at the time. And he saw this opportunity to build something a little bit more lightweight and that really catered to the needs of the small to mid-market sector, because there's like big national or regional landscaping companies, but then you've got people who they just started the business because they grew up in this particular line of work and they were like, all right, now I'm going to go and start my own. And so he saw this opportunity to serve that mid-market and small business sector. But turns out, even for customers in the mid-size to SMB space, the buying cycle or the sales cycle, it feels surprisingly enterprisey. So in other words, think about someone who's running a business that revolves around the weather. When we're getting into February, so like mid-February to late February into early March, that's going to be prime planting season. And then into the spring, when the weather's nice, that's going to be prime installation season. Over the summer, into the fall. And then there's this teeny tiny sliver of time when business slows down for the people running these landscaping companies. So we're getting into late November, December, January. That's really the only time they have during the year to think about improving their business or look back at their numbers and be like, what worked this year? What didn't work this year? The rest of the year, they're out in the field. They have no time to make buying decisions. They're
managing
like
staff and
exactly.
sales. Yeah.
So even though we're not talking about an enterprise customer, we're talking about, again, mid-market to SMB, the people who run these businesses really only make like software or they only make software decisions in a very small window of each year. And so the co-founder, the CEO came to us after seeing me speak at a conference and walking through our way of identifying what customers find valuable and reworking messaging and so on. But the problem that he was feeling was we've got this teeny tiny window of time to hit ambitious sales goals. And if we don't hit our sales goals, then the rest of the year is going to be painful.
It sounds like they've got this like really high stakes period of time that if they sort of miss the boat on, so to speak, it puts them in a really uncomfortable position. But also in that small window of time, there's also everybody else is competing in that time period as well. I wonder though, and maybe you have some insight into this, those broader, more not as vertical specific sort of more contractor solutions, were they going hard on marketing and acquisition during this window at the same time as them, or was that part of this landscaping, what are they called again, landscaping.io, was that part of their advantage, right? And maybe that's not like critical to the story, but I guess I was just trying to understand, like, it sounds very high stakes, really short period of time. I recognize actually we are still working with this company, and I know I have like experienced us being in conversation about why their timeline has been so expedited because they're in this time crunch. But yeah, I'm wondering like what had they been doing previously to sort of, what did they do last year, I guess is the question. And what have they been doing and planning for all year? Why did we get to crunch time basically?
I'm glad that you set the context of let's think about this tiny little window of time that they have to hit their sales goals each year, and the fact that they have to focus their efforts on that time frame of December, January, February to hit their sales goals. And so do their small number of direct competitors. And I would say less so does do the more like generalized solutions have to tailor their strategy to that window. But those more generalized solutions typically do have a lot more funding and ability to invest in acquisition all year round. Something that I had forgotten to mention that comes into play here is landscaping.io is also self-funded. So they don't have a ton of cash to burn on running ads throughout the year. And like they have to be very choosy in how they go to market. Because differentiation has been challenging in the past, one thing that's worked really well for them, but totally doesn't make sense for their customer lifetime value, is going to trade shows. Because the CEO, who again has been in the industry, his personality, in a good way, but his personality really drives the brand. If he can get in front of someone who's running a landscaping business and walk them through the software, then there's an aha moment in that conversation. There's this one thing that they do really well for landscapers specifically that these other competitors cannot do. But on their website, they mostly look like all of these generic competitors. So if I go to landscaping.io's website, right under their hero section, there's a section that says what we solve. And it's a million different things: CRM, budgeting, digital proposals, scheduling, project management, time tracking, invoicing. And when I go to like probably the number one, there's two major competitors that do all of that and do it better, which is Jobber. The hero section of Jobber says, get your home services business running smoothly. Jobber helps you quote, schedule, invoice, get paid all in one place. If I go to House Call Pro, another major player in this space, start a risk-free trial to see how easily your home services business can improve scheduling, dispatching, invoicing, payment collection. They all sound same. If I go to a direct competitor, LMN is a direct competitor. LMN helps you manage your business from end to end for landscapers with tools that make it easy to create estimates, track time, simplify invoicing, payroll. Like they all sound the same. Both the niche competitors and the generalized competitors all sound the same.
It's almost like they believe that they need to sound like the others in order to compete with the others.
Yes, that's exactly it. Because over time, they've been around for, I want to say like 10 years. And so over time, they started as this one particular thing, and they've had to add on these other features to, in their mind, gain parity with all the other competitors in the space.
Right.
And so where have they ended up? With a powerful platform, yes, but a platform that sounds like everybody else's.
It's so funny how you can fall into the trap of we need to get to parity with our competitors when it's like your competitors are the barometer for what you should be doing versus your customers, which actually came up recently in a podcast episode that I was listening to. Actually, it was Pep's podcast. Oh my gosh,
Too funny.
this is like I feel like
The
a previous
Pepisode.
episode was like our ode to Patrick Campbell, and this is our episode that is our ode to Pep. I believe it was the CEO of Keep. I do not remember his name, previously Infusionsoft, who is talking about how they pay very little attention to their competitors. They're customer obsessed, not competitor obsessed. They purposely put blinders onto their competitors and just focus on what do our customers care about. And it has worked out very well for them in a very competitive market. Keeps in a wildly competitive marketing automation. And they actually referenced this like Jeff Bezos quote from years ago when Amazon was in this very competitive and like weird market where they were about to be apparently eaten up by like Barnes and Noble and like the big monsters in the space. And he encouraged the team of only 150 people at the time to basically stop focusing on them and focus on being customer obsessed and don't think about what they're doing or getting to like parity with the bigger competitors in the space, but focusing on what are their very specific needs of customers. I just think that's so interesting that it's so tempting to swing in the extreme opposite direction that you should be swinging in when in a competitive market.
The market is rough right now for SaaS and subscription-based businesses. Competition is fiercer. The cost of acquiring customers is higher, and customers' budgets are tighter. The arrow on the chart goes up and to the right some months, but other months it dips again, and no one can really point to why. So you go with what you know, more tactics to generate more leads, to bring in more sales. It's not that your ideas are bad or wrong. The real problem is you're guessing, and you're not alone. For well over a decade, Claire and I have been helping teams at companies like Bitly, Wistia, Postman, Linktree, Invoice Simple, Sprout Social, and Autobooks stop guessing, gain more clarity around what matters to customers, and dramatically improve conversions. In 2019, Claire and I developed the customer-led growth framework that to date has helped thousands of founders, marketing, and product leaders get out of the weeds, think more strategically about their product marketing, and meaningfully impact revenue growth. And we wrote a book about it so that you can too. Rather than a toolbox, this book gives you a system to follow so that you can choose the tools that are actually right for your company, your team, and your customers. This book will help you make better decisions about what to implement, when, and how. And once you're done with the book, there's a 110-page workbook that'll help you connect the dots between learning customer-led growth and implementing it within your company. Before you waste another minute or dollar frantically taking action, and if you're honest, guessing, search for Forget the Funnel on Amazon and grab your copy of the paperback, ebook, or audiobook.
Let's talk about this other example, very different space, which is why I want to hear you talk through this very different, not only situation, but also like customer space and like competitive space. They're mid-market, if I'm not mistaken, right? This other example, which I'm not sure, what are we going to call them? Hiring.io?
.io.
Okay.
Okay, so Hiring.io, employer of record, global hiring software. The founders of this global hiring platform had been in like employee mobility for a very long time. And employee mobility speaks to the like enterprise companies who need employees on particular projects all around the globe. So they'd been in the global employment space for, I want to say, over a decade. With the rapid shift around the world to remote work, they came to us saying, everybody sounds like us and we sound like everybody else. So what is the message we need to bring to the market to cut through the noise? Because like it's become such a copycat space. And this is the part that I worry sounds a bit tired. We've been here for decades, but all of these heavily funded new players are coming up and we're not sure how to compete with them. We did an assessment of their core message on their homepage versus some of the key competitors. Their headline was hire anyone, anywhere, today. All right. Which first of all is a wild promise, but that was their message. Here's one competitor. Hire anywhere, thrive everywhere. Here's another one. Hire anyone, anywhere. They all sound the exact same.
I mean, what had they been doing? How were they marketing? How were they keeping customers? What was their sort of reality? What had they tried?
So it turned out that keeping customers actually, like once they closed a customer and got that new customer through the onboarding process, their retention rates were actually quite high. Like their existing customer base was pretty well happy with the solution and the service provided. But it was getting good fit people through the front door that was a huge challenge. Not surprising in a commoditized market where somebody is looking at 5 different homepages that all sound the same. And unfortunately, also in this market, I don't know about you, Gia, but maybe it's because of the work that we did with this company. Maybe it's because, Forget the Funnels LinkedIn profile says we work remotely. I get outbound sales emails from people selling products in this space at least once a week. So guess what they were doing? Outbound sales. I believe they're still doing outbound sales. But when your outbound sales message sounds exactly like everyone else's, woof. And they weren't strangers to the fact that they had this problem. They came to us trying to understand, sure, we can come up with creative alternatives to the message that we're putting out into the market right now. But going back to one of those quotes from a survey respondent to PEP survey saying, what we think differentiates us doesn't always matter to our customers. Really, that's at the core of what this company was struggling with.
Okay, so with these two examples in mind, what was the outcome? So they both, spoiler, we were able to come up with differentiated value for both of them. And as you're talking through this, all of these like neurons in my brain are firing from like memories of working with companies in very similar situations. How on earth do you stand out? And I know that with this hiring.io example, you've got this really specific place where you leaned in. So I was hoping you could tell that story.
Yeah. So they did not have like the sleekest or most up to date or best self-serve product out there. I'm in this discussion with the leadership team at hiring.io, and we are looking at the competitive landscape from a messaging standpoint. Everybody sounds the same. And so naturally, then we start to have a product discussion. And we reach this understanding together that hiring.io's product is not the best out there. The customers that really are a great fit for hiring.io and get major value and stick around, however, are customers that self-serve would, how do I say this? Their best customers cannot get enough value from a self-serve platform. Their customers are the types of companies that have highly specific like exceptions to each rule for the employment contracts that they need generated. And so they need a team with tons of expertise and like legalese knowledge. And they need a team that they can trust that's been in this space for a really long time. And most of the heavily funded competition in this space is not going in that direction.
That's so interesting. One of my biggest takeaways from this conversation is that so many conversations about differentiated value and strategic messaging focuses on the market and not enough on what does the product and what is the actual offering? What is the differentiated value that customers get? Not that we're offering, but that customers get. And I feel like that's the piece that often gets left out when we talk about messaging, because we equate messaging with marketing. And we forget often to look at the flip side of this, which is like, what does your product actually, or your solution actually do for your customers? What is the value they actually receive? Because it sounds so obvious, as these things often do when you're like talking about them in hypothetical terms like we are right now. But the nugget that you're pulling out was that we had to have a conversation about the product. We had to get real that actually we are not the best product on the market, but what are we the best at and for who? That was how hiring.io was defining their best customer as having very specific needs, which meant they didn't need the best product on the market. They needed the best what? Service, support, hand-holding, white glove.
They needed hiring.io realized that they have an opportunity to win the enterprise market because they can be a consultative services business first with tech second. And that's exactly what their best fit customer needs. There was one particular customer we spoke with who had evaluated several of the newer, like shinier, sleeker options on the market. But again, those shinier, sleeker options, they're operating on scale, they're operating on self-serve and minimal handholding. And this particular customer was like, that wasn't enough for us. We needed someone to provide like legal advice. We needed people who know what the heck they're doing, not to be a ticket in a customer support queue. So hiring.io was able to make a decision that we're going to be a service provider first, and we're going to bank on that level of expertise rather than focusing on scale and capturing the lower end of the market.
Yeah. It's so interesting that these two examples too, because are so different, solving a very similar problem, but very differently. So with hiring.io, it was like, you're not coming for the product, you're coming for the service and the extra layer of support and subject matter expertise that we have. And the landscaping.io, it was about the product. There were very specific aspects of the, like very specific features that let
that
this
they do better.
Product stand out. That's right. And so from a messaging standpoint, it might have been a little bit more straightforward with like landscaping.io to come up with that differentiated messaging, lean into the parts of the product that deliver that value, that are differentiated from the competition, versus on the hiring.io example, it's like a completely different story. But in both cases, it was really about getting very clear on what is the, not only problem, the problem space, basically. What's the problem that we solve and for who?
Being able to have that discussion with hiring.io, being able to have that discussion about the product and acknowledging what our product is not the best in the market, but we win at services hands down, has enabled this company to rethink how they approach all of their messaging naturally. And they're able to take a very competitive stance and say, these other newer, better funded solutions in the market, they might be a great product, but if you need advice, if you need guidance, this is going to be like trying to get guidance from like a support rep at your cable company. What you need is an advisor, and you're going to pay more, but you're going to have peace of mind that there's a team that knows the ins and outs of all of your specific hiring needs. And we are here for you. We have predictable timelines at which we get your employees onboarded. We have a handbook that you're going to walk through. We have a whole system versus these self-serve options where it's good luck, figure it out.
Totally. And that learning not only helps with positioning and messaging on the website, obviously, but also helps them be really buttoned up and lean into the messaging for the onboarding as well. So post-acquisition, post-convincing them on the website, but what is the strategy they should take post-acquisition to help reassure this new customer that they're in the right place, the messaging that they continue to lean into if somebody expresses anxieties and things like that, and making sure that those are addressed. It's really this differentiated value in the messaging that we're talking about uncovering here. Sure, it's helpful for your website, but it also is a huge guiding light for any post-acquisition messaging also that's needed. And so in the landscaping.io example, it's a little bit different, right? That one, I imagine, had more, there was like the hierarchy of messaging of like how you would introduce the product, even on the website, but post-acquisition again, during the onboarding, I imagine that was like a very different approach than with the hiring.io. I imagine with landscaping.io, I almost switched it to landscape.io. Not a bad name. I imagine that one was like, okay, so what parts of the product do we lean into? Because there's very obviously, like, we're vertical specific, we address this very specific needs of these like landscaping businesses, but how do you then pull that messaging post-acquisition? What did you do with them? Or are you there yet?
We are in the thick of that right now. Just the other day, we had a conversation about how this learning needs to completely change the way they run their demo. So I've watched recordings of past demos that their sales team has run, and the people who run, like, their sales team is great, like very knowledgeable, very helpful. Like, they're not doing a bad job to start off, I guess is the best way to say it. Okay. But the way they've been running demos historically is, let's walk you through every aspect of this entire freaking product. So let's show you the CRM. Let's show you the scheduling. Let's show you the invoicing. Now that we have gotten clarity on the element of the product that their customers care most about, the team has made some really interesting decisions, and I'm so excited for them to implement. Like, they're at a retreat right now, but they're going to implement starting like next week. They're going to change the expectations on what's going to happen on the call. If you book a demo, come with your current pricing sheet. Come with a recent job estimate or a job that you completed or whatever. Bring that, and then we're going to use like our industry benchmark numbers, and we're going to show you on the demo, cool, here's what you quoted for this job. If you had been using landscaping.io, here's how you would have been able to, number one, arrive at your estimate way freaking faster. And number two, looks like you undercharged by like 8K. Imagine the difference that's going to make versus here is the CRM, here is the scheduling.
Yeah, totally. What's the sort of main takeaway, Claire? Because both of these examples were very different.
Regardless of the state of your product, if you have existing happy paying customers, there is a nugget of differentiation in your solution somewhere. It might be in your product, but it might not. And you and your team need to be ready to have those conversations to really assess, are we winning at product, or is it something else we're winning at?
I also think it's important to call out that this isn't just a marketing exercise, because when we talk about messaging, it is very easy to just think about messaging equals marketing and marketing equals that the messaging exercises is really a marketing exercise. And it's much more holistic than that. And it becomes probably a conversation about positioning in some cases, not always, but it can. And so I just want to encourage everybody to zoom out and not only learn from your target market, and don't only do the surveys, the website surveys. And that's not to say that those methods are bad or wrong. They're fantastic and they should definitely be leveraged. The same thing with like social listening and things like that. There's a ton to learn there. Just don't forget to actually also go back to your customers who are already getting value from your product and are already, like you were saying, like engaged customers who have put money where their mouth is. They have proven that they have a willingness to pay, a high willingness to pay. And these high LTV customers, why would you prioritize your target market over customers who are paying you and who actually experienced this whole thing? And exactly what you were just about to say, which like chose you over all of the other options that were available to them. They actually made that decision, and there's a website visitor isn't going to give you that information. And that's not a dig at any of these tools. Like I said, they're very helpful, but after you've done this core research to understanding what your customers say, then do your message testing and layer on target market landing page tests. And using tools like Winter, super, super valuable and helpful for refining and testing and validating. But get to that core essence first, because the two stories that we just told, you wouldn't have gotten to those learnings had you just done a landing page test or social listening or target market surveys or things like that.
I think the exercise of identifying your segment of ideal customers is in itself a really interesting exercise. So going back to landscaping.io, we started with a broad swath of folks and narrowed it down and down and down over the weeks of trying to get in touch with people. And that alone, before we'd even finished running the interviews, that alone gave the leadership team an insight. And a bunch of them like really weren't actually that engaged or didn't really show up, or man, they haven't even gotten to the core moment of value in the product. And so that on its own started some internal conversations around who really does get value from this thing? Who are we actually best for?
Then you're in the wonderful position to not only learn from them, but also look at the sort of, again, from a qualitative standpoint, but also look at the quantitative side of it as well. Okay, I think that is a perfect takeaway and next step for anybody who is in this situation. Yes, chef's kiss, Claire. There we go.
All right, see you next time.
And that's it for this episode of the Forget the Funnel podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions about the topics we covered, don't hesitate to contact Claire or I on LinkedIn. And you can also visit our website at forgetthefunnel.com. This is still a new podcast for us, so ratings, reviews, and subscriptions in your podcast platform of choice make a huge difference. See you next time.